Okay, special edition of not selling Hobson by the pound, but kind of showing you what Hobson does with his music room. So come on in. This is a specially built music room, and what you'll notice is that it's got some sound treatment up on the top. Those are absorbers, and then there's diffusers around and so forth. I've got curtains here, I've got a sofa and so forth, there's carpet on the floor. And so the objective of this when I built this house 20 years ago was to have a room that is stable acoustically. And so when you come in here and you talk or you listen to music, this is a baby grand piano I've had for about 30 years. And I've got a series of guitars. I even just recently bought a harp. Of course, now I need to learn how to play it, but nonetheless. And then I've got certain prints around and so forth. But let me talk to you just a minute about this room, because part of the special nature of the room is that there are no corners. All the corners in this room are rounded, right? They're not 90-degree corners. And none of the walls are parallel, even though when you look at them, you think, well, they look like normal walls. But it turns out they've been shimmed so that in the center of the room, the walls taper towards the corners, right? And so in terms of standing waves, this room is acoustically very stable. So, I've had this room for many years, and let me just show you a couple of the components here. This is my latest incarnation of speakers. You may know, or you may not know, in addition to classic records, I owned a company called High Resolution Technologies, and Kevin Halverson and I started that company some years ago. It's no longer in business, but as part of that activity, we did USB D-to-A converters and so forth, but at the end of that run, we did speakers. And these speakers are called the stage loudspeakers, and they were originally just a set of speakers, like two, a right and a left, and a control center, which was an amplifier and a preamplifier, and it was intended for a desktop system. Unfortunately, that didn't really go well in the market, and so I repurposed the speakers and put them into a line array on sound anchor stands. And these are sound anchor stands that are custom in the sense that the spine, and I can show you that from behind, the spine, these are normal sound anchor stands that are available, but the spine on this is 84 inches high, right? And so it accommodates 12 speakers per side in a line array setup. And you can see below the amplifiers, which are the stage control centers. Each of these amplifiers is a stereo amplifier, and so each channel, one channel of each of these, powers one speaker, and the same thing on the left channel. So I'm just going to tell you a quick story about this, and then we'll talk maybe next time about the front end of the system, but I just want to talk to you about the back end. Originally, I had NOLA Grand Reference and a number of other speakers in this room, very, very expensive loudspeaker systems with big amplifiers. I had big Plenius amplifiers in here at one time. I've had big tube amplifiers in here and so forth. But what ended up happening, and this is an interesting little side story, when the two-speaker computer system that I described before, the stage system, didn't really fly in the market, and I repurposed and had Scott Markwell, who was working for me at the time, I said, Scott, let's take these speakers and turn them on their side and make a line array. So we started out with 2 per side, and then he did 4 per side. And every time he would have me at the old Classic Records office come to the back and listen. Mike, come back and listen to this. And when we got to 4 per side, I was like, something is going on here that I can't understand. It took me about a month, and every day I would go back and listen, and I would come home and listen to this big system, and finally I realized something that all, and I say all, and there's going to be people out there that are going to listen to this and they go, Hobson, you're full of poo-poo. And I'm going to tell you this, all hi-fi systems have the sound stage and the music coming from behind the loudspeakers. Now, there are some exceptions, so the all is an exaggeration. Horns have a different presentation. If you listen to old Klipsch horns or even some of the newest horns in the market, the music is not behind the speakers. The music seems to come out at you. And that's what this system does, that no other hi-fi system of any cost, the biggest Wilsons, the biggest Avalons, the biggest you name it, great sound, but it's all behind the speakers. And the listener has to go into that sound. And it's great, and it's all pinpointed, and there's great bass and dynamics and soundstage width and height and so forth. And sometimes you can hear people move a stand. It's so detailed. But that's the difference in live music and playback music on hi-fi systems of these modern days that sometimes go now into the range of $500,000 to $1 million. You have to go into the music. So once I heard what this line array does, and by the way, if you've ever been to a live concert, like at Hollywood Bowl here, or an outside venue, a concert venue or whatever, and they got these giant line arrays, and you get this like wall of sound that comes and gets you, and you feel like you're at a live event. That's because the sound is coming out at you. And in systems where you've got these high-end speakers and the sound is coming out, but the perception, the way your ear and your brain interprets it, is as the music is behind this veil, this invisible veil that is the front plane of the loudspeakers. And what these speakers do and what line arrays do and what some horns do is you get that sense that the music's coming to you, and that that sense of liveness that's hard to get, that I really never understood. I always knew that my hi-fi system was a pale comparison to live recordings or live sound where I was in the room, but I never really got until these speakers put into a line array could give me that extra thing that I'd been missing. And so literally almost every speaker I listen to now, to me, sounds broken. And I'm not being critical of all the work that hi-fi manufacturers put into making high-end speakers. It's all about, in a hi-fi system, creating something that you love. So I'm not being critical of any of that. I'm telling you from my standpoint, I had to come home and sell my $100,000 Nola Grand Reference. And they went to a nice man in Hong Kong, and I hope he's happy with them and all the amplification. But I have a much simpler setup, but one that brings me closer to that feeling that I'm live in that presentation. And just so people know, if they're interested, reach out to us. We can facilitate some of these being put together. I'm really not in the business of doing that, but if somebody's interested, contact us and we'll figure out a way to help facilitate that. Like I said, Soundacres makes the stands. You got to have custom cables made, but it's all doable. And I know the people that have gotten into this have said, that it's really quite a pleasure. So anyway, that's the back end of the system. I'll just point out, by the way, that I've got some giant woofers in the corner. Those are made by Kevin Halverson. They're called Muse Model 18s, and there's one in each corner, and that adds that low octave of bass down to about 10 hertz, which can literally shake the pictures on the walls in this room if you have an appropriate recording, like a big organ recording. I'm not really into that so much, but anyway, that's the back end, the speakers. I wanted to share that because people have asked, hey, what are those speakers behind Hobson when he's doing these things? And I wanted to share that with you in a little longer format. Next time, we'll take a look at the front end. All right? So thanks for listening. Bye for now.